Globalization, another issue that is affecting engineering education. It's just, which is not globalization in the general sense. I mean globalization of engineering activities. Of course, globalization is affecting everybody, everywhere, and every activity. It's just, but also engineering as activity. I mean those companies trying to able to build everywhere a power plant, a highway, or a factory. Those engineering activities are also becoming more and more global. And there are some data, and the source of those data is a very nice report by the company, Apex Engineering, just regarding this point, globalization of engineering. And they say things like that. And for instance, they say that in 1990, 40% of the world engineering work was in USA, but now it is clearly things are changing a lot. That means that things are changing very rapidly, and there is a process of, they call offshoring engineering activities. That means that, well, they are able to do everywhere, and that's so it's changing a few important numbers. That means that the engineers and the number of engineers that you require here and there are moving very fast. And just before, you need engineer here and you need engineers there. And the number of engineers, the numbers in terms of quantity is also something which is changing all over the world. I say as a consequence of those changes, where the activity is located. And this is another reason, because accreditation, international accreditation, is becoming a key issue in order to know exactly how good, how bad. What's the level of those engineers here and there, and that's those general accreditation of engineers professionally, and also the programs in university is something that is becoming more and more important. Everybody is trying to get those accreditation, and for instance here, we are just on the process to be accredited by ABET, that is an American, international, fundamentally American agency, in addition to the European and Spanish agency. Of course, but it's something which is becoming more and more usual, and the relation between the accreditation agencies all over the world is just something in progress, just the cooperation. And at the same time, it's something that is happening personally. Probably in the past, when you got a job as engineer in a company, you go there, okay, say, okay, I'm an engineer, okay, very good. You begin to work in the company, and you expect that the company is going to give you the additional preparation, education required to develop your work in the company according to the evolution of the company. And this is true because, well, the company want to have those well-prepared staff in order to, well, to be elected to get the best condition for the company. At the same time, but at the same time, globalization, it changes the rules, and things here and there are moving, and very often the people need to be more individually what is going to happen, because, well, probably if the company is doing right things, that's okay, but if you are not in the right company doing right things, probably you are in trouble in those globalization movements of the engineering and other activities is happening without your control. So personally, you need to look at yourself and be concerned about the updating process of your own education according to your job. It's something that is also something to be considered. And in addition to that, there are other challenges. Of course, I have no time, but other challenges could be considered in general. And it is like administrator. That's one of the things that I put as administrator. There are continuous increments of tuition costs. I mean the cost, but not the income. To innovate, ability to work in multicultural environment, ability to understand business, context of engineering, interdisciplinary skills, communication skills, leadership skills, an ability to adapt to changing conditions, and an eagerness for lifelong learning. This is the different kind of engineers from the norm that is being produced now. That is something which is discussed. Everybody is saying similar things. And of course, at the beginning, there is something that everybody agrees, is that in addition to analytical skills, well, are well provided by the current education system, is something which is that everybody has said that we are doing that properly, but of course, there is some lack that we will identify through those elements. And that means that we have to modify some of the educational model, the way of educating our students. And this is something which is, has been everywhere, and most universities. I have checked some of your papers. I realized that most of you are working in those ideas. In some cases partially, just trying to solve a very specified, a very special problem, very well identified and concrete problem. But other cases, well, you try to consider in a program or in a faculty or at a level in the university. And most of the concept at the base of those ideas, educational model are student-centered, just versus teaching-centered or teacher-centered. That's the idea, learning-centered, problem-solving oriented, team-working oriented, etc., etc., etc. And the ideas are clear. The problem is how to implement those elements in your own university, in your own department, in your own classroom, in your own activity as a professor in the university. And those are the challenges that we are facing everywhere. And everywhere have programs, innovation, educational innovation programs everywhere. And we are doing same here. We have a very nice program. We have been for many years on that. And also some results are happening. But still, it's a continuous process, and there are some cultural barriers we need to jump, and that's, or just to remove, both, or just jump or remove those barriers. There's something which is happening. And for instance, some of the ideas that I mentioned before, for instance, at MIT, they say in the task force on undergraduate educational commons, so what are the common topics for everybody? It doesn't matter what degree they get at the end, undergraduate, I mean. And they say things like, if you look at the right-hand side, you see, for instance, biology, that I mentioned, everybody biology. And you look more, you say behavior of complex system, everybody behavior of complex system as a topic. And if you look neuroscience, for engineering, neuroscience, but it's there. So they are defining new areas, new subject for everybody. And they are not just in the general, knowledge they need, like the left-hand part, that means humanities, history, and so on and so forth. That is clear, that is also very useful for the people. I mean that in those areas that is specified or specifically oriented to engineering. This is happening, and this is some of the changes that are happening. Or if you look at this is just taken from the web, what the University of Aalborg in Denmark say about itself. Say something like, as a model of teaching, problem-based, project-organized model, and so on and so forth. You can read what exactly they are trying to do in order to increment, to modify the way of teaching, the way of learning from the point of view of students, based on those key elements that we mentioned before everywhere. Or you go to in Europe again, to the University of Twente in the Netherlands. Also, they define something similar as a general policy for the whole university, and those are university having technical programs, engineering programs, and those elements are one of the key elements in the model, in the educational model they have in those universities. And all these things are happening, and also, of course, we are doing the same. So we are doing the same. Just one very simple. We have now developing a model. That is based on these 6 pillars. That is something that is, well, simple because the sentences are very clear, but just before to end, before that, it's just, I have just a small 2 minutes video that I'm going to show you. Just 2 minutes. Which summarizes exactly what it is. Okay, let's go. That's what we try to do here. Sorry because it's in Spanish, but basically it's an educational model based on 6 pillars. Number 1, it's just student-centered. That's what it means. Active education, that renovation of education methodologies, project-oriented, people working on teams, professor teams. Number 2, internationalization, like most of the programs, with things like mobility programs, of course, for the students and staff. internationalization of the institution, international graduate school, international semester. Number 3, efficiency and quality. So we try to the reduction of the drop-offs, professionally oriented, coordination, the whole program, accountability. Number 4 of those pillars, just interested in the academic success for the students, innovation, coordinated with the high school and so on, with some programs in order to get similar level for everybody and so on, mentoring programs. Number 5 is just commitment with their graduates. That means connecting entrepreneurships, programs for that, just trying to develop or to go to for a job, networking, alumni, association and so on. And number 6 is just open to the society. And this is social responsibility, connected with companies and industries, fundraising, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what we are trying to implement using similar approach that we have everywhere. That is our 6th pillar in the program. And let's move now to the conclusion. To the conclusions in those in my presentation. Just 1 second. That's the 6 pillars that we described in Spanish just before. And some conclusions, just very simple. After all this, as I said before, overall description that we define like innovation in engineering education, a few topics. First conclusion is that changes are happening very fast everywhere, even in engineering education. And the ability to adapt our institution to those changes, it will make the difference between those successful institutions and those not so successful institutions in the future. So adaptation capacity is something very important. And we have to develop the structure, the operating principles, the way of doing things that are able to be adapted to the changes that are happening. Now we describe the situation that probably in 5 years the situation will be a little bit different according to those changes. Number 2, university need to define their strategy to face these challenges. It's not a question of a single professor or a single department or a single program. It's a question of the whole institution. They need to define it clearly. And they state their strategy in areas like emerging fields, if they want to go in those fields, or just to continue the classical studies they have. And at the same time, if they're able to get what they define like a flavor, because I don't know how to say this, those so general at implementing everywhere elements oriented to sustainability, globalization, internationalization, that are key elements in engineering education today. And at the same time, need to define their educational model. We have to define clearly that. Here we are doing that. We are just doing that continuously, and you need to reorient continuously this education model, because it's important in order to solve some of the problems defined in the previous challenges. This is basically what I want to say today. Thank you very much for your attention, and that's my talk. Thank you.